Hi everyone, I'm Vinod, adjunct faculty at IIT Palakkad, and welcome to Career Board. Today's conversation is going to be about a topic which not many people discuss. When you reach the age of 30 to 35 in the software industry, and as you grow your career as a software engineer, you reach a critical point at that time. And we will talk about what happens during the age 30 to 35 and why survival in IT and computer science is difficult after a certain age and what you can do to get around those problems. So let's jump into it. If you watch my earlier video on career hierarchy within the software engineering job family, one thing you'll notice is that as you keep growing within the company, you reach a critical point at a certain phase, which is that you have to decide at a certain point if you want to build your career in the technical career path as a software engineer. So what happens is that you pretty much get promoted from software engineer to senior software engineer and then say a staff software engineer. And then you have to make a choice. This journey takes approximately 10 to 15 years. And at that point of your time, you're probably in your 30s or mid 30s. Then you have to decide, do you want to become an architect, senior architect, and a distinguished engineer and so on? Or do you want to go down the path of people management and resource management, which is manager, senior manager, director, senior director, and VP? So that's a critical decision for you to make. You could also choose the career of, say, a principal software engineer, senior principal software engineer, distinguished engineer, and so on. But what I'm trying to say is that you have to decide, are you going to go down the technical path, which is more of an individual contributor? Do you want to manage teams of people? So you have to make some of these choices. And this is sometimes the point at which people actually ask themselves the question, do I need to do an MBA to survive in the software industry? And my recommendation is that if you want to pursue pure play career track in as an individual contributor, or if you want to do only tech side of the world, you don't need to do an MBA. But then if you really want to learn more about people management, resource management, finance management, budgetary management, and if you want to target becoming a CEO of a company, it's very important that you pick up management skills, and MBA is going to be important. But you don't need to study full-time an MBA. You can also do part-time MBA because you just need the knowledge. You're not using the MBA to get a job. So that's where I would place it. So this critical point of deciding whether you want to go down the path of architect or do you want to go down the path of people manager is very important. And many big tech companies will expect you to make a choice at that point of time. There's also one more path, which is that you begin as a product manager and you get promoted to being a senior product manager, lead product manager, and so on. And you have to decide, do you want to be going down the path of being a senior group manager, director product management, or a senior director product management? Because the people management side of software engineering and the product management side of software engineering, they merge at a certain point, which is when you reach the level of a director, whether it's product management or software engineering, they tend to merge. So by the time somebody is trying to become a VP for the software engineering organization, whether you are in people management as in the software engineering career track, or if you're in product management, it does merge at that point. At the same time, you also have other examples of people who spend their entire life in the software side of the world, which is a person like Satya Nadella. So Satya Nadella, unlike Sundar Pichai of Google, began as a software engineer at Microsoft. And Satya Nadella kept growing his career in terms of he was senior software engineer, and he kept sticking to the software engineering career track for a long time. And he did his master's in computer science. And for him, his MBA was an executive MBA. He didn't really use his MBA to get a job, unlike Sundar Pichai, who uses MBA to get into McKinsey and Google and so on. But for Satya Nadella, he totally spent his time in terms of understanding the tech side of the world, wanted to become a tech expert, and just learned the skills of MBA to help him do his job better. But he spent his entire life at Microsoft. So that's one way of looking at it. So the man management side is not something which comes easily to software engineers. It's a skill you learn over time. So actually, there are umpteen cases, and I used to lead the engineering organization as the HR director for a bunch of Silicon Valley companies. And I could sense that sometimes people get promoted too fast from being a great senior software engineer or a great staff engineer to becoming a people manager. And they just collapse within the first 6 months. And many of them were asked to leave the company because they were not doing a good job. So sometimes when you get promoted in a software engineering career, and if you don't spend time thinking about what could go wrong in your career, and if you have the right people management skills, you could be a failure in your job and you could even be terminated. So sometimes an individual career track makes sense for people who are not good in people management. So I think that's probably one takeaway from today's conversation. And again, do an MBA only when you feel that you need to do that to develop your career. So a software engineer doing an MBA doesn't really help this person, or a senior software engineer doing an MBA doesn't help. But if you're a staff software engineer, or if you are, for example, a lead product manager, yes, you're getting into man management roles, and an MBA does help you. Okay, let's move on to a different track, which is that most companies basically work on a pyramidal structure, which means that there are a lot of job openings at the bottom. And as you get promoted, there are lesser and lesser job opportunities at the top. There is only one person at the top who's the CEO, and everybody else work under the CEO. So you can see that as you begin your career as a software engineer, you have a lot of job opportunities. You can move between roles in your company, or you can change jobs very easily because there are lots and lots of job openings for the entry level software engineers, even for senior software engineers, or even staff engineers. But then, as you get promoted to being, say, an architect, senior architect, or a senior manager, director, and so on, it's very, very difficult to find the right fit for you. Companies can be extremely selective when it comes to the selection process. So they could probably sometimes interview close to hundreds of people for a senior architect position or a director position and select nobody at the end of the day. And that's really the way recruiting works. So if you get promoted, it's also very possible that in addition to making high compensation, your chances of getting a new job or a new role also comes down dramatically. So do factor that as you look at growing your careers, that as you get promoted, your career options also become lesser and lesser. And that's really unfortunate. I would say that the other problem which a lot of folks face early on in their careers is that you are replaceable as a software engineer or a senior software engineer. So you would assume that if you're not doing a good job, it's very easy to let go of that set of people and hire somebody for the role. So that could impact you in two ways. One is that you are not replaceable when you work for a company. And that also means a lot of job opportunities in both your company and in other companies, because the number of people who leave companies and who have to go through attrition is very high. So you get a lot of job opportunities in multiple companies. But then as you keep growing in your career, you pretty much become irreplaceable to the company, which means that if somebody gets fired, it's not easy to find a backfill and find a person who replaces this person. So movement at the top positions become lesser and lesser as you get promoted, which means that there are lesser opportunities for you to also get into a higher position and get into a more leadership role within the company. So as you get promoted, your chances of further promotions keep decreasing because everybody there is getting paid a lot. They don't want to leave the company. So which means that if they don't leave the company, there is not enough opportunity for the people below them to also rise up to the top. And there's also another tricky thing. So if you look at the best places to work rankings, obviously you want to work in those companies which offer a good work-life balance. But the problem with the best places to work rankings is that all those companies which are at the top of the list, nobody leaves that company. So their attrition rates, the people leaving the company, is much below average numbers for the software industry, which means that most people, when they get a certain job, they're sticking around in the job forever. They don't move out. So sometimes going to a great tech company is probably great for you in terms of building your resume, but please be aware that your career options in terms of promotions will come down. and your options in terms of picking up different skill sets could also decrease because there are not enough opportunities waiting for you at the top. So this is counterintuitive, but I thought I'll bring it out. One more factor I would want to throw in is the idea that, at least when it comes to India-based compensation, there are multipliers like 2x and 4x, which you'll often see as you work in companies. Basically, this means that if you have maybe around 5 years experience, your compensation is going to be at least 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs. So which means that it's a multiple of the years of experience. So 5 into 2 is 10 and 5 into 4 is 20. So in most companies, as you are in the first phase of a career, your compensation is probably going to be between 2x and 4x. That really is normal. And what that means is that if you, for example, have 10 years of experience, you can easily see, is your compensation between 20 lakhs to 40 lakhs? If it is not, maybe that's a question mark in terms of, are you doing the right job? Do you have the right skill sets to survive in the software industry? And you're probably also getting underpaid. So you may want to consider switching jobs. So do apply these statistics as you spend more time in a company. When you're reaching the age of 30, 35, you probably have around 10 years of work experience, if not more. So do use these numbers 2x and 4x to see, are you getting paid adequately? Or is your compensation equivalent with respect to market? And that'll give you very good insights. Okay, so keeping everything aside, I think the biggest takeaway from today's conversation is that irrespective of your age or number of years of work experience, what's most important in the software industry is that you need to have the right skill sets to survive in software industry. So the difference between, say, a software engineering career and a mechanical engineering career is that in mechanical engineering, for example, if you're in design engineering, you can pick up certain skills when you graduate with an undergraduate degree. And 30 years later, you're probably doing the same job or similar jobs, and you don't need to pick up new skills. But in the software sector, what happens is that the world is changing all the time. So within 5-10 years, a new set of technologies emerge, a new set of skill sets emerge, new set of domain skills emerge, and you have to keep yourself abreast of what's happening in the sector. So the software industry requires you to reinvent yourself many, many times. And I always give this example of Parag Aggarwal, who was an ex-CEO of Twitter. He has an undergrad from IIT Bombay in computer science, a PhD in computer science from Stanford. But irrespective of that, he was always participating in hackathons. He was taking a lot of online courses. He was trying to pick up new skills all the time. And that's the reason why he became really good in this space. So likewise, it's very important for you to also understand that you have to keep reinventing yourself, and just an undergrad degree in computer science 10 years in the past will not guarantee you a great job in the future. So be aware of the dynamic. The second thing you'll have to be aware of is that there are certain hot areas. So the current hot areas, AI, machine learning, and so on. So this changes every decade or so, but currently this is hot. So the best pay is not for people who are working in, say, real estate design or doing coding for chips and all that. It's actually for people who are doing a lot of product-based work, who are working on AI, ML, and so on. So if you are in that space of AI and ML, there's a good spot to be in. And if you're not in that space, do learn some of these skill sets because they'll help you get a market premium and get noticed by the best of recruiters. You might ask me the question, so what's happening in the market right now? Isn't there a lot of craziness, and there's still a demand for AI ML engineers? And the way I would answer the question is that the essential dynamics of the computer science based roles have not changed, whether it's software, IT, big tech. Every company actually is doing very well, their business is doing well, but the problems they're facing right now is not linked to what they are doing. It's independent of the company. It's actually linked to a lot of macroeconomic uncertainty. It's linked to inflation. It's linked to the crazy war happening between Russia and Ukraine. It's linked to rising prices of oil. It's linked to the fact that some countries don't want to negotiate to end the war. So all these things are coming together to create a lot of friction between countries. So the IT industry is not doing badly, but they are a part of the larger economy, and The economy is not being governed properly by the right stakeholders. So that's causing a lot of uncertainty in the market. There's also a lot of fluctuation of currency rates. The dollar is becoming, I would say the dollar is becoming stronger, or you can put it the other way that the Asian currencies are becoming weaker. So what's happening through all this is that there's a lot of macroeconomic uncertainty which is impacting companies. A lot of companies have frozen recruiting. They don't want to hire anyone because of all this craziness. A lot of big tech companies have stopped internships, they've stopped hiring. They're saying that if people leave the company, others just have to manage without a backfill for those positions. So everybody's working much harder. So be aware that this will change once the war ends, once some of the macroeconomic uncertainty comes down, things will pick up. And I suspect that the demand for AI, ML engineers, computer science engineers will be as strong as before. It will come back to normal. And again, that's my considered guess. The other factor, as you kind of look at your career, if you're in your mid 30s, early 30s, is that ask yourself which location you're based out of. Not every location is useful. And remember the fact that compensation is linked to location. So what I mean by this is that if you are, say, in India, and if you're based out of Bangalore or Hyderabad, you're probably going to get a market premium compared to, say, Chennai or Calcutta, because compensation is directly linked to the fact that how difficult is it to hire talent. So that is the only criteria being used by HR folks to decide compensation. So when I decided compensation, I used to do a lot of salary surveys. Salary surveys are totally dependent on the region you're based out of. If you're based in Silicon Valley, you will get paid more than, say, New York. You will get paid more than Chicago. You will get paid more than Seattle. That's just the nature of the game. There's a lot more taxes in Bay Area. There is a lot more cost of living in Silicon Valley, Bay Area. So again, what that means is that if you are in places where there are a lot of tech companies, there are a lot more job opportunities for you, and also your compensation is going to be much higher. So if you think that your compensation is not high, do ask yourself the question in terms of, are you in the right geography? And that will help you in terms of understanding which location you need to be based out of if you want to improve your compensation. Typically, compensation in Chennai is probably half of, I mean, not in every single case, but average numbers are probably half of what's getting paid in Bangalore, especially for the top positions. So again, if you want to be in India, Bangalore is probably the Silicon Valley of India. Likewise, if you want to be in the US, California is probably the greatest place to be in because that's where the most job opportunities are. And if you're based out of Bangalore or Silicon Valley, recruiters will message you like every week, asking you to join other companies, startups, and other big tech companies. Yeah, probably things are not that great right now because of the recession, but again, I'm sure that things will change within a year. So location is very important. I would say that keep gaining additional skill sets, and as degrees like getting an MS in computer science will not really help you during interviews. What matters during interviews are whether you have the right skill sets, and you can learn the skill sets by actually taking online courses on Coursera. You could pick up these skill sets by doing open source projects. You could be on a lot of these online websites like HackerRank and a bunch of other sites, Lead Code and so on, where you compete with others and pick up skills. So there's no need to do an actual formal degree to be noticed in computer science. Undergrad by itself is enough if you're trying to reinvent yourself. This is unlike many other sectors where you need master's degrees to get noticed. So that's one big advantage of being in the computer science sector. Okay, folks, I come to the end of my conversation. So hopefully you learned something from my conversation about what happens to IT careers. And do let me know in the comments what you thought about the video. And if you have listened to me so far, I'm sure you gained something from it. And I would love for you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. And also press the bell icon so that as soon as my videos get released, it comes to you. And I also get data and metrics about how many people are watching my videos. And that's very important for me. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for me. So long, folks. Great talking to you. Until next time, we'll connect later. Bye-bye.